Hello, I'm Skeleton. I've hit Radiant countless times on multiple agents, and I've also peaked rank 1 on Europe. I am an experienced coach and player, and I'm basically just here to help you learn everything you need to know about Valorant. Okay, so in this video we're going to be looking at Cypher on Split. Now, I play quite a lot of Cypher on Split, and I think he's definitely better than Killjoy. I know a lot of people like to play Killjoy, but I just think Cypher's better. There's a lot more you can do on him, and I think this is maybe one of Cypher's best map. Well, I'm gonna say maybe best map. I think he's insane on Sunset, so maybe like this map and Sunset are definitely Cypher maps. You know, he's really strong on both defense and attack, and he just does things on this map that like no other agent can actually do. You know, maybe Viper can do some similar stuff in terms of how you play it on attack, but in general I think Cypher's a really strong agent. So when thinking about how we want to play Cypher, it really depends on your team comp, on where you want to be leaning towards on A or B. You know, if you do have like a bit of a stacked defense comp, maybe you have like a double smoke. You might have Omen and Viper, or you might have, you know, a Sage and a Omen or something like this. You know, you can, like, let's say you have a Sage, right? You don't need to be. You can be stacking your util on site. If you don't have a Sage, you know, you're gonna want to be covering, you know, Heaven. You want to be covering vents, maybe. You could do this trip. I can't ping it, but you can see. You know, and be covering the flanks as, you know, the mid lurk, sorry, rather than just stacking all your util on site. If you do have a Sage, then, as I said, you can be stacking trips and cages on site, on A or either B. Now, I'll show you the trips that you want to be doing if you don't have a Sage. You know, you want to be doing a trip like this, maybe. Just gonna cover both the ramps lurk and the, you know, if someone walks up vent, or you can just throw a trip down here. If you're throwing a trip down here, you know, you do want a camera or something that's going to be holding your Heaven for you. You know, maybe your teammates rotate over. You know, a lot. When you're playing Cypher or something like this, there is going to be instances where you are alone on site, and you don't want to be hiding backside A and you have no info on the ramp guy and, you know, stuff like this. So, you know, a good camera for that is you just throw a camera up here. Or throw a camera, you know, this one gets broken a lot more. Sorry, let me here. You know, you could just throw a camera like here, right, and it's gonna kind of see. I think if you do it a little bit lower, actually, it's better. Yeah, there you go. Look, so you know, it's holding your main and it's holding your vent walkout. Well, obviously you can do this one. Let me get it. Like this, and it's going to see anyone walking into main, and you know, you can do like a higher one like that, and it'll sometimes see over maybe the Cypher cage or something like this. But you just want to be making sure you can keep an eye on the ramp lurk, or have a trip covering it, right? Those are the two things. You know, you want to be making sure you are controlling not just site but controlling ramp as well, because it's going to be super annoying for both you and your teammates if the enemies can just take this space every single time, right? And you've got no util covering it, or you know, you have no info whether they can be there or not. In terms of setups for A, as I said, you know, this camera is really good if, you know, they're not really going A all that much, because it's going to see deep into main. It's going to give you a lot of info. And, you know, off this camera, you can do this camera. You're like, right, okay, A is really quiet, and you can just, you know, throw a trip like this, and now you have the full A space. And this camera is just really good for the early info. Even if they're rushing A pretty fast, this camera is great because it's going to tell you how many people are pushing A. You know, if you see 4, maybe there's a mid lurker. If you see 5, or they're just going really, really fast, you know, you can tell your teammates instantly. There's no messing about, right? Like, you can tell your teammates instantly. The mid rotate comes in, you know, your Heaven player's ready, and you're ready, right? So this camera is really good, but it does get broken pretty fast, especially if you're doing it every single round. Like, you know, it's one of those type of cameras. You know, if you want to mix it up, you can also, you know, oh, I missed it. You can throw a camera onto there. But this one gets broken quite a lot, but again, if they're not playing that heavy towards A, this camera is insane, right? Like, you see literally everything. So yeah, these, you know, getting the early info on Cypher can be the difference between, you know, you having this whole half of the map. Like, you have this whole half of the map just off one trip and a deep camera, right? So you really want to go off how, like, the pace of the game. If the enemies are playing super slow, a deep camera like this isn't always worth it, because if they're playing slow, usually they're gonna have a guy outside there, right? You're just gonna break the camera, and then you lose your camera, and you've lost like a lot of information. But you know, if they're playing really fast, that camera can be really good. Or if they're just leaving A completely, you know, sometimes, especially in lower elo, like sometimes there's just not a player on A, and you can push through behind, or you can just, as I said, put a tripwire here, and you literally have A. Now, in terms of, you know, how you want to set up on site, a really nice trip is this one. I think especially with the sky nerfs, like, you're gonna be seeing a lot less sky. And it was usually the sky dog that would break this trip. You know, this trip's like a very strong trip. Even just a trip like this, right? When, you know, if you pair it with a cage, you know, people are running through, it gets a lot of people. For such a standard trip, this trip's really strong. I see a lot of good Cypher players doing this trip. Obviously, you have the ones off the planters, you know, you can do there. You can do this one higher if you want. You can do one kind of like this, you know, for the run out. It depends on your positioning as well, right? If you're playing from heaven, you know, you don't want to trip like down here. You know, you don't want you know, you don't want to trip like that you can't play off. The great thing about Cypher on A is that you can play off a lot of these trips. You know, you can throw a trip down here, you can throw a trip across here. Usually this one's better, right? Because people like to try plant there. So this trip's super strong. And in terms of your cages, you know, as I said, you can throw a camera like this. Is actually, look at this camera. This camera is actually really good because it can see into spawn, but then, you know, it's pretty deep, right? So it can see into main as well. You can see the run out, stuff like that. It's a good camera. Or even if you do throw your camera up here, you know, you don't have to pop it. If you hear them coming fast on site, let me get it right. You know, let's say you're playing around here, you hear them coming fast on site, you don't even have to pop this camera. You can kind of wait a little bit till they're in this area, and then you pop the camera, right, and you can see everyone. Some nice cages for site. If you like a little one way, you can throw a cage up here like this to play around. You kind of want it to get a little bit lower. You can, like that, yeah. So you get a little bit closer. I don't really use this one, but it is actually pretty good. You know, you've got a bit of a one way. Usually what I'll do though is I'll just throw two cages like this and pop these however you want, and play off your trips. You know, if your trip goes off, or if they're swinging out wide, you just pop this cage, spam off your trip. You know, you can pop this one. You can either run to elbow, or you can even just, you know, kind of just stay around here like this. What you want to be doing on Cypher is, obviously you want to be trying to kill people, but you also just want to be staying alive and being as annoying as possible and waiting for your teammates to rotate in, because, you know, A site and B site on split are pretty hard sites to retake in general, right? So you want to just be trying to stay alive, being annoying as possible, and just just staying alive, really, trying to kill people, playing off your trips. You know, even little things like, you know, if you ping someone, it slows them down usually, right? If someone gets pinged, they're kind of like, oh, I've been pinged, you know, and they're thinking, should I pull it out, should I push, should I fall back, like, you know. And this kind of like backside area it's really easy to stay alive for a long time. So, you know, you can play site on Cypher, but what you do have to be thinking, if you are playing in this area, you know, am I gonna get omen flashed? Am I gonna get breach stunned? stuff like this. And if you're realizing that they've got a lot of util to dump on top of you, that's when you want to be kind of playing towards screens. And you can play retake, you know. You can play screens, you can spam off your trips, you can play heaven. You know, maybe you have a teammate that's kind of like playing ramp, and you're just kind of playing in heaven, and you can support him if they push ramp. That's kind of how you want to be playing Cypher. You don't have to just be like locked onto site every single round. You can be playing aggressive with your camera. Obviously you can anchor, or you can just, you know, play it a little bit more passive, give them sight, play off your trips, this type of stuff, you know. Maybe you can throw a little cage for yourself. I think a better cage maybe is like something like this, right? And then you can drop down, be weird. Yeah, and just be thinking about your positioning. You know, you don't want to trip like this if you're playing from screen, you know, or like elbow or something. You know, you want to have a trip that you can peek off of, that you can play off of. A cage that I do a lot is this one, right? So I'll have a cage here and I'll have a cage here. Okay, so I'll be kind of playing around here, or I'll be playing like here. Maybe kill one, pop my cage, and then there might just be so much stuff going on. You know, I pop this cage and I just leave. Okay, this cage is just an exit card. It's just literally a free exit, and then you can play from the screen, right? You can play with your team. You got a 5v4. You know, again, it depends on your comp. Like if you could have, say, a Sage and an Omen, right? The Omen can play B, the Sage can wall heaven like this, and you can have 3 people towards A. You can have a guy hiding here. You can have you know, you can be playing on site, maybe playing a crossfire like this, right? And then you can have a teammate, you know, maybe playing deep heaven with an op, or he's playing ramp. This type of thing, and that's like a nightmare for the enemies to have to push into. And you know, you can do higher trips like this. You can do a trip like this that's gonna catch the satchel. You can just do like one that's gonna catch them as they're running out. You throw your cage like this. They're kind of trying to run out. And they're gonna just hit this thing. Same with this one. This one's actually really good against a lot of people. Because a lot of people, when they get here, they want to get into this space as quick as possible. So this cage, this trip, you know, catches a lot of people, and you can just, you know, imagine like you have your cage here, right? You're the enemy. So the enemy comes out, runs out here, and there's a cage up, and you just spam straight through the cage. There's nothing the enemies can do really. And as I said, because Sky's going to be getting played a little bit less potentially, or Sky is just weaker in general, it's kind of like an indirect buff to Cypher, right? Because it's going to be less Sky played, which means it's going to be less dogs and stuff that's going to be hitting your trips, therefore making Cypher stronger. So that's the type of shit, type of stuff you want to be doing on A. And yeah, you know, you can do stuff like you can. It's a nice camera, right? You can see into main, hold your ramp, and it's a really safe camera. And yeah, you know, you just want to be kind of making sure you are covering ramp. So, you know, at the start of the round, you can maybe put all your util on site. You know, the barrier drops, throw your camera up there, right? You've got a ramp camera, and you can just play here. You know if anyone's coming up ramp, and if you know, you can have a cage like this, a cage like this. You know, they start pushing A, they hit your trip, spam one, they kind of come out, pop your cage again. You know, it's probably going to be a smoke here, right? You can slip into the cage, drop down, fight. You get what I'm saying, like, there's a lot you can do. So yeah, that's A for Cypher, I'd say. And yeah, as I said, if you don't have a Sage, making sure you're covering this lurk, because people will lurk to see you don't have a Sage. For B, again, usually just a trip I'll do. It's a pretty standard trip, obviously. You can just do a trip like this, or you can put it a little bit further out. You know, you just want to make sure that they can't like walk up. So I'd say like here, and this is just going to cover your heaven, right? For some nice cameras on B, obviously like there's the default one that everyone does, which is this one, and it is a strong camera. You know, you can see main, you can see heaven. It's just generally just a good camera. But a nice camera for the walkout is you've got this one, right, and you can see the walkout. You can see heaven as well. And this one's just a good camera. You know, if they are kind of playing a little bit slow, maybe they're playing to break your util and stuff like this. You know, this camera is actually better because it's super hard for the enemies to break. You know, this one people can walk out and break it. They can, you know, maybe you can see it from here, depending on how you throw it, or as I said, you know, they might just walk out and break it. So this, and you know, this camera, like if they want to break it, like they have to walk all the way out here, and they're exposed from so many angles. So it is a good camera. You know, I'll do this camera a lot. You just want to kind of throw it on this side of the B. You know, obviously, like if you throw it like here, you're not going to see anything. So yeah, and this is just good to, you know, scene to main. Maybe you don't see anyone, you can, you know, you can push. You can maybe just sit somewhere like here, right? And then, you know, the camera goes off and you peek off the camera. You can even just throw a trip like this. Usually a better trip would be something like this. Oh no, sorry. Can they jump over? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know. You can throw a trip anywhere. That's gonna cover B. But yeah. I was gonna say put a trip here. Like I was just thinking while I was doing it, but they can just jump over. You know, obviously they can jump over this one as well. There's not like a very good trip for B main. I mean, I guess you could put it like here, right? And then it is gonna cover B main a little bit deeper. Or I mean, you know, you just put it like deep like that, and it's gonna cover it. But can they just they can jump over it? I don't know. But yeah, so it's the same concept as A, right? Like you can play aggressive on B. But most rounds, you know, you don't really want to be. In terms of setting up on B, you know, this one way is like really strong. Like a lot of people do it. Just throw it like this. You know, and then if you're playing backside, like the enemies literally can't see you, and you can see them. So you want to be like using that one way. Sorry again. With, you know, you can have your camera up here. Do it. And then for tripwires, usually you want one that's going to be covering the closer area, and you can have a bit of a deeper trip if you want. You know, maybe you can have a trip, you know, like back here. There's this one. There is like any one on here is pretty strong. And what I'll usually do is I'll put a cage here and I'll put a cage here. Okay, which gives me a lot to play around. If I get the instant, if I wanted to fight B main, maybe my camera sees someone, then I have the option to get an easy fight here. And it's awful for the enemies to have to push through, right? Like you can just see them. And then, you know, after that cage is faded, I have this cage, which if I want to, I can fight. Or, you know, it just buys me a lot of time and gives me something to play around while the enemies are running into my tripwires. And as I said, this camera is great, all the other ones really good as well. And again, similar concepts on Cypher. You want to be staying alive, but you also need to be aware of how the enemies are using the util and what util they've used. Backside is such a strong position. You know, if you're just playing an angle like this, you just stand like here, wait for the run out. You can kill 2 or 3 people easy. But if they know you're here, or if they breach after shocking or stunning it or raise nading it, this position's horrible because you're gonna die. So you want to be making sure you're aware of where you can actually play. You know, backside is an option, but I'm not a massive fan of backside because if you lose this space here, right? Let's say the enemies take this space and they have this like all this space here. Any of your teammates, it's really hard for them to rotate out now because not only do they have to worry about here, they have to worry about here as well, because you've lost this space. You know, if you're playing from pillar, there's going to be times where you're going to have to play from pillar. You know, you've just been pushed, they've broke your trips or whatever, and you're going to have to play from here. And if they have this space, as I said, your teammates now have to worry about here, and they can't get out to help you. Like, it's going to be pretty hard for them to get out to help you. But if they know this is clear, you know, everyone can focus on this. The CT players can rotate in, and it's going to be a really easy retake, and you can fast retake before they've even planted the bomb. So you need to understand what parts you need to be holding. You know, what parts of the site are really the most important parts, and usually it's here. Right? This is like the line of death. Like, you don't want, if the enemies are kind of passing through here, then it's going to be a long day. Obviously backside can be really annoying. Like if you're playing against a Raze and he keeps satcheling back here, you know, it can be annoying. So, you know, even like behind this box, like, you know, you can maybe play like here, kill one, you know, pop your cage, you know what I mean, like go your cage, you know, you kill one, and then you can fight this guy. Your heaven guy's gonna rotate in, you can fight it together. So that's how you're gonna be playing B. And yeah, and I mean, you know, if you really want to get aggressive on mid, you can do. Obviously, you can throw these deep trips down. These are really good if they're not contesting mid. You know, just throw a trip. You can even throw a camera literally like this. You see the whole of mid. And then you can push off it, get aggressive. Maybe your teammate can push off it at the start of the round. You can literally just like throw this camera and leave. But you only really want to be like throwing your util in mid if they're not fighting mid. If they are fighting mid, it's just going to get broken insta and it's a waste of util. And yeah, that's really the basics for Cypher on split defense. Like, if you're applying these fundamentals and you're playing as basic as this, you're playing Cypher properly. You know, that's how you want to be playing Cypher. There's a lot more tech and a lot of like weird stuff you can do, obviously, which I can go into on another video. But for now, that is what you want to be doing on Cypher. If you do this stuff on Cypher split, you're gonna be okay. Like, you're playing the agent properly. Now for attack on Cypher, you know, your goal is going to be lurking and putting pressure on the map. Okay, your teammates are probably going to be going in a group a lot of the time. You can be going with your teammates, but in general, if you're playing a bit default, you're playing a little bit slow, which is how a lot of people play split. You want to be kind of controlling this A main area. This is where you're going to be quite a lot of the time. You know, a camera, probably most people know, you know, you could throw this camera up here, or, you know, you can throw a camera kind of, get it like this, right? And it does see the ramp cross. It's a really tight camera, but you can see the ramp cross and you can see heaven. And you can kind of see the main push as well. Bit of a safer camera. I think you can do one here as well. You know, which will see ramp and see heaven, but obviously it's a little bit easier to break, so it's up to you which one you want to do. Now, in terms of how we want to be playing this, you need to be like messing with the enemy's head. So the two cages you need to know is this one and this one, right? And this is just going to cage main, and it's going to cage ramp. Now, not only are these cages important for lurking, blocking info, but also if you're rushing A site, right? If your teammates are like, right, let's rush A site. No, you can throw a cage ramp for your team, and they don't have to worry about this ramp guy now. You can even throw a trip. You can even throw another cage. Ramp is out of the picture for a good 15 seconds. And you know, by the time this cage is faded, your teammates have already got sight, and you can be chilling around here. You can play off your trip. You know, maybe they try to jump over the trip. You peek on the footstep. This is really your job on an A push, is to be holding this flank. And to, you know, be controlling ramp if you want. You know, you can throw your ramp cage, and you know, you can push through, clear this, you know, take ramp. I don't know, like, you can take ramp, throw your camera up here, clear it. Yeah, just control this. You just need to control this, really. Make sure that, you know, because when your teammates are on A site, okay, you have to think, if it's the other way around, your teammates are on site. One player controlling ramp means instead of 3 places the enemies can come from, it's 2, right? All they have to do is worry about screens and worry about heaven. And, you know, heaven's a nightmare to have to push through as a defender if you're retaking. And, you know, screeners as well. But if they've got main control, heaven control, and screen control, your team are getting pinched from all angles, and it's really hard to hold. But if you can just control this, you can literally just sit, you know, sit like this, jiggle, you know, keep your cage there if you want, and then when they start trying to fight it, you can cage it. As I said, you can trip it. General, just holding this area, controlling it. You know, you can even play from here like this. You know, just obviously be careful that the enemies don't just like walk out around here and shoot when your teammates in the back. But yeah, that's what you want to be doing really on attack on Cypher when you're rushing. And if you're lurking, you know, it's just a normal round. As I said, you know, throw your camera up here, make sure no one's close main. Oops, sorry. You throw your 2 cages like this. And this just blocks all the info for the enemies. They don't know if you're lurking or not. You could be sat here. You could have just thrown the cages and you're sitting in lobby. You could be pushing ramp. It blocks a lot of info. And the reason this is important is because it's stopping the rotates, right? This guy now has to stay because he doesn't know if you're ramp or not. This site guy is now worried. Is he ramp? Is he, you know, close main? Where is the Cypher? You know, they're worried where the Cypher is. And in reality, you could be shifting through sewers and joining your team. Just applying this pressure is super valuable. And you can be taking ramp, right? You know, as I said, your cage is down, you walk through, you clear ramp, you know, take this heaven space. This is an insane position to be in. You can literally just, you know, you get here and you can sit here for 30-40 seconds, right? Your teammates have put loads of pressure on mid. You've heard this guy rotate, right? You know heaven's clear now. You can push through. You have a lurk. Now you can either tell your teammates to rotate A, or you know you can tell them, right, go B guys, I have a lurk. You know, and you can kill this. Maybe you kill the heaven guy, opens up B heaven. Now you've got a B split. This type of stuff. Well, I'll say this first. You know, if you are playing mid, you know, throwing a camera like this is like super strong. Obviously, you see basically everything. And obviously, if you know, you might want to support your team, cage and rope. Push through. You can throw a trip if you want. You can either throw a trip like this, or you can just kind of just throw a trip like this, and it's just gonna, you know, when your teammates are up in B heaven, it's just gonna like stop this guy. You know, any of these trips work. No, because the last thing you want to be doing is, you know, some guys swinging out ropes while you're pushing heaven. And yeah, like again on Cypher, maybe your team are going heavy A and they don't have a sage. You know, lurk on mids, take space. You can support your team with your camera over here, and you can just walk up, take mids, lurk, be annoying. This is what you want to be doing on Cypher. For B, you know, you can give yourself a camera if you want, if you're a bit like worried about the guy peeking with an op. The best trip on B usually is like this one. Well, it actually depends what you're doing, right? If you're rushing B, this trip is better. If you're playing default, you know, say you just want to throw a trip down and play mid, you want your trip to be like here, because obviously I see a lot of people doing this trip, and the problem with this trip is you can actually just jump over it, right? So it depends what you're doing, where you want your trip. For B, it's kind of awkward to trip. And you know, if you are walking out B, maybe, you know, you're lurking B, again, you know, you can just throw like a cage like this, and you can throw a cage like this and you can walk away, right? You know, maybe you put your camera here, you know, you kind of don't see anyone, maybe you know there's a guy back side or something. Throw a cage like this. Now this side player, I'm just gonna throw his cage again. This side player is thinking, Cypher could have walked out, it could be here, it could be anywhere, right? And he's worried. The heaven guy is now looking. You know, you've pulled a lot of attention on you. So much attention's on you right now, and you can literally just be sitting in the main, just chilling. It's what you want to be doing. You want to be pushing, pulling rotations, finding timings. You know, you can walk through this cage. If the Cypher's not here and he doesn't have a trip, you know, you can walk through this cage. Maybe you fight the guy heaven, maybe you just walk through. Yeah, finding timings, lurking, stuff like that. It's what you want to be doing on Cypher. Don't be scared to play aggressive, early info, all that good stuff. And yeah, I'm going to go in more depth, probably for Cypher Split. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do. Trying not to swear. But yeah, that's it really for Cypher Split. That's the basics.